it is now time for our spotlight session, which is Rich or Poor, Every Life Counts. Experiences from India's mega hospital. Now, in this session, we will try to understand how doctors in mega public sector hospitals serve as many patients as possible. This is an attempt to understand how public sector hospitals try to serve every strata of the society to the best of their abilities. This is the life story of all those doctors, nurses, and medics who decide to serve humanity, to work with a purpose so that there is no life lost or anybody left impaired in health. Now, in this session, we'll have accomplished doctors share with us their own experiences, their own ideas on what truly works and works best. In this session, we are going to be joined by Professor Dr. Binay Kumar Biswas. He is Head and Director of the Department of Anesthesiology and Pain Medicine at ESI PGI MSR and ESI Medical College. We'll also be joined by Dr. Sanjay K. Agarwal, the Professor and Head of Department of Nephrology, AIIMS, New Delhi. And we also have with us Dr. Roma Kumar, the Senior Consultant, Clinical Psychology at Sri Gangaram Hospital. So I see at this point in time, we have Dr. Biswas and Dr. Roma Kumar with us. Welcome to this session. Thank you so much for sparing the time to come here, and thank you for sharing your experiences with us. Dr. Biswas, I'd like to start with you, and we request you to share with us your experience of working in a large public health hospital, and tell us about what an everyday for a doctor is like, and what is your number one priority when you go out to work on any day.
Thank you for organizing such a nice integrated meeting. Should I say that from the integrated council is an integrated meeting? Because we can, in this lockdown, we can see each other, we can talk to each other. There's some great moments for all of us. Again, thanks for the integrated council for welcoming me in this gala meeting. If you see, for the last 30 years, I'm in this profession. Career started, obviously everyone starts with their career from the youngest, and gradually where we reach and where we will be reaching, we don't know. But at this moment, probably we started meeting with fewer number of patients at the beginning of the career. But at this moment, not only patients in a public sector hospital like us, we have too many faceted responsibilities. That is, most of them are hidden. That common people, they can't see that what we do for the nation. First of all, I say that large number of medical students, the doctors, they are being still produced by the public sector hospitals. If you see, the number of government hospitals and government medical colleges are still more in number than the private medical colleges. So the health care of the country, the backbone of the healthcare system, still the government is producing through these public sector organizations. And these public sector organizations is being run by public servants like us. So people might think that what we are doing, but people, difficult to say what we are not doing. See, I started my career just by meeting with patients only, but right now my morning, it starts with seeing the patients, then it goes to administration, then it goes to academic administration, then it again comes to patients, then it comes to teaching, then 24/7 it comes to the online with the patients. Because I belong to such an organization that serves to the poorer segment of the community that we must not forget. Like ESI Corporation, very few of will be knowing what does ESIC do for the country. Just for a small example, we have 6 lakh employee under our panel. Out of these 6 lakh employee with their family, we have around 70 lakh dependent altogether. Because 6 lakh employee plus their families, plus their parents, plus their in-laws. Everyone is included in our insurance scheme. But how much they are paying for us? If our maximum earning ceiling level is 21,000. So those who are earning more than 21,000 in a month, we are not including them. But from 1,000 to 21,000, to all of them we are giving the health cover at the cost of what? Only 1.25% of their salary. Just remember, just if it is a 10,000 salary, they are giving just around 100 to 150 rupees per month. And in a year, 1,000 to 1,500. With that, we are giving 10 members in the family whole healthcare, full sum, holistic, starting from palliative care to super specialty, to neurosurgery, to cardiac surgery, to implant, to transplant, to eye surgery, to neurosurgery, everything free of cost, including transport, including after operation 10 days medicine. So I believe that public sector organization, what it is doing is great for the poorer segment of the community that no other insurance is going to provide it. So it's this focus, this forum. I'm delighted that this forum has brought me to express the concern of my organization. I am very happy and delighted to share you that the country and the public sector is doing a great, because see, 1,000 rupees payment for 1 year, they are getting 5 lakh rupees knee replacement and a 10 lakh rupees renal transplant. So we are giving it free. Obviously, it is free, but at what cost? It is the involvement of the public servant. Each and every public servant is doing their job from morning to evening, meticulously doing, until now probably you won't come any question of integrity in the public servant in ESI Corporation. So I'll give you a break so that if you want to communicate further, I will go to other segment of the teaching and education and research and other poorer segment beside the public sector that my organization is doing for the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Biswas. You said that for 30 years, you started by looking at patients. Now, what the general public, the view that they have of public hospital is, it's super crowded. If you don't know the right person, you will wait forever and you will not get treated. So there is this entire mafia of intermediaries, and this gives the public sector hospitals a little bit of a little nervousness in the minds of even normal people. Now, even if I have a lot of money, if I can afford private service, I know that when I go to a public sector hospital, the quality of the doctors is unprecedented. They have seen all kinds of patients from all over the country with all kinds of diseases. They have the best hand. But even if I can afford private service, I feel a little hesitant about going to a public sector hospital. Jaan pehchan nahi hai to treatment nahi hoga. What do you say to that? And for the normal patient who comes from very far off in a small village in our country, what is the experience in a public sector hospital? Doesn't have the insurance.
If they do not have the insurance, this fear was there 30 years back, 40 years back, and the fear there was expressed, it will be there 20 years after also. But over the decades, the public sector hospital is treating patients, and people are going home, and again they are coming. See, every day there is a queue of thousands of patients in every public sector hospital. That means there is trust somewhere. There is fear as well as trust. So the fear they have, the fear is mainly because it's the human health. It's your health, it's my health. When anyone of our family or I myself or anyone gets sick, the first of all we think we want to get the most comfortable and comfort zone where we can communicate the best in each and every moment. But obviously we all will try. If I wish I could talk with my physician whenever I need, that desire will always be there because there is the health, because if it's once gone, it doesn't come back. So that fear will always be there, and it's not 100% possible to alleviate that fear from the public sector hospital, because the time and the number of patients they come to the public sector hospital and the number of persons we work. So one-to-one holistic care is not always possible. But this is also true. Once they come to the hospital, probably they find different. Okay, they came with a lot of fear, but when they go out, probably they don't have that much of fear they had come with. And that is the reason.
Dr. Biswas, the fear is never about the treatment they will get. They are 100% sure about the doctors and the ability of the doctors, which is why they come there, which is why they wait. The only fear is getting the access to the healthcare. Because there is a genuine demand-supply gap. You trust the doctor. You know they're the best. You're just like, will I get that treatment? Because there's so much gap.
It's probably where you can play your role, because we need more number of hospitals. in every community and every block. So if they have their own access in their own locality, probably this fear will be a little bit less. Suppose someone has to come from Jaipur to Delhi, suppose, or from Moradabad to Delhi, definitely in an unknown place, he will have more scary situation. But if we can generate more and more number of caring hospital in the locality, probably we can reduce it to some extent, because the physicians and others who are working there, they get a mix up with the community, then they become close by. That is one of the solution. Otherwise, hello.
Yes, Dr.
Okay. That's fine. Otherwise, we have to go and gradually. We are see what the fear was there 50 years back. Probably it has improved a lot. Over the communication skill and the medical ethics and the medical council and the teaching methodology, all have inculcated some sort of bondage with the patients, the relatives, their communications. And this time the government of India has recommended that after entry in the MBBS course, everyone has to go through 2 months of rigorous training, how to be with the patient, how to speak with the patients, how to deal with the patients. This has been introduced from the last year. So probably when it gets out, when these students come out, probably they will have more boundaries, more interaction, and these things will gradually wear off over the time. I believe we have come across a lot of, and we have improved a lot, and it will also. That is the reason people are even still keeping trust in the hospital and they are coming. Obviously, at this moment, it's very difficult to say the fear will not be. Even when I go to the other, suppose if I go to Delhi and I get sick, even if I go to any government, that fear I will be. Or gradually, when you interact with the physician, gradually the fear goes out. That thing is there also in corporate also. Even if you have an insurance also, then also you have that fear, because I paid money.
Dr. Biswas, what I wanted to ask, what I wanted to get was that when you go to your hospital, you have already enumerated for us 70 lakh people you cover with just the insurance. Now, somebody who's not insured can also walk into your hospital. So when you go on a normal day, when you start your day in the hospital, when you look at a patient, does this play in the back of your mind that there are many more patients waiting after him? Does that impact the way you will treat the patient?
Probably, probably health sector is the one of the place where we complete the whole number of patients in that the same day, then we go back. In bank, probably they will say tomorrow you can collect the draft. The railway will say that tomorrow you come for the booking. In any other sector, only in hospital, whatever patients come for that day, we see all of them at any cost. Whatever turmoil we have in our mind, physical, mental stress, anything, we never allow it to be exposed. And hospital is the only thing till 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. or 2 p.m., whatever is the hospital norm. Whoever's made a ticket, we see, we meet, we talk with all of them. Is it 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., it's 8 p.m., it doesn't matter. We never say come tomorrow with today's ticket. That is the gracious thing that our Indian health sector is offering. I just want to highlight that hardly there will be any other sector. They will be doing the same day all things. We don't keep any work pending for the outpatient department. That's a great job all physicians are doing all over India. I think whatever stress and whatever, we never say no. And obviously, we hardly become harsh with them. Even with so much of pressure, so much of patients around. In OPD, if you go, there will be 15 patients, right? 10 right, 10 left in front of 5. And brain is working like a supercomputer. One patient is different from the other, and other is different from the other. Still, we are doing hardly any mistake to all of them. Otherwise, your media will be flooded with such of news every day. I don't find such news in the media. I don't find such news in the print media or digital media. That means our brain computer is work superbly. Be it in the Northeast, be it in the Jaipur, be it in the Kerala, be it in the Andhra, everywhere the physicians community working for this nation and for this population wonderfully, I believe so. And also you will be watching this every day. So be it go to Medicity, be it go to AIIMS, be it go to Faridabad, everywhere you see morning to evening, all OPDs, thousands and thousands of people have come, and at the end of the day, OPD is empty.
Right.
So I believe they go out happily. That's why next day again people come. So there is some trust. Some trust is there.
In your OPD and not sending anyone back empty-handed. It's really amazing. Dr. Roma Kumar, I would like to come to you. Ma'am, you would have seen many patients in your lifetime. And I want to understand with you, what goes on in the minds of the patients when they go to public hospitals. And as Dr. Biswas said, that there is a fear for their lives. Is there also a fear that they may not be attended upon? The belief is if you go to a private hospital, you pay and you get treatment. But that parameter is not there because the services of a public sector hospital are affordable for everyone. So, what is the fear that you have seen patients with uh, in your practice?
Thank you, Anisha, for getting me here on this platform to talk to all of you. I've been in this field of mental health as a psychologist for past 30 years. And I set up the child development clinic in Gangaram Hospital. So I work from Gangaram Hospital. We have, apart from the private OPDs, we have general OPDs, and we are taking care of all the people who are coming into the general OPDs. It's mandatory for all of us to maybe run 1 or 2 general OPDs, or maybe even 3 or 4, depends on which clinics we are attached to. So for me, I'm attached to a couple of clinics where in the hospital where I have to do those general OPDs. We cater to all the population. We don't just cater to the people who are actually able to only pay us. And since it's a mental health profession that I am in, we sitting in the hospital setup, we do a lot of crisis intervention. We do a lot of therapies for individuals who come in. And there is the psychiatry department and the department of pediatrics with whom I am attached with. And also the other departments where people do refer cases for any mental health support. And currently, Anisha, that you must be also aware that the mental health is very badly affected of everyone because of the pandemic situation. And the hospital is completely geared up to deal with all the mental health issues. And yes, people who come to the hospital are scared. And also when people come to mental health facilities, they start feeling that we don't want medication. We are not, because of the stigma attached, and they start feeling, again, this thought is coming from the print media or the digital media, that if you have psychiatric medication, you're going to get hooked onto that medicine and you'll never get okay, or the psychiatrist or the mental health person is going to put you off to sleep and you're not going to get better, and so on and so forth. So a lot of stigma being attached there. I think the work of the mental health professionals in the hospital is to help these individuals come out of their anxious situation, come out of their depressive states. And also as a part of being in the hospital, since it's a academic hospital also, we are supposed to also teach students of the DNB faculty in all the disciplines, and we teach them also. And also we have regular camps being held for the general public, where it is not charged at all, and that camp will cater to even the mental health needs of all those individuals who come in there. So we are catering to all the public,
So ma'am, I want to understand, when you hold these camps, do you see good turnout? Because mental health is still seen as taboo. There is still some stigma attached to it. Like if it's a free eye camp or a free gynecological camp, people will go because, eye camp, we want to get it checked out. But when it comes to a mental camp or a mental health checkup camp, what is the turnout like? And even in your everyday life, when you go for these public OPDs, do you face a lot of patients coming in, and do you feel kind of overwhelmed by the number of patients there?
Well, the patients which come in are, in my language, it is the clients who come in into seeing us are quite a few in number. And the camps, we have large numbers coming to us at the hospital. And also we hold lectures for these people, not just examining. The examination comes post the talking. So we're talking mainly in Hindi at that time, so that we are addressing the general public, and the psychiatrists are addressing the issues. Maybe it could be alcoholism, it could be substance, it could be relationships, it could be children, it could be any disorder, or it could be any mental health issue. So we first discuss those issues, which is over 2 hours. We are holding the people there, and we are talking to them, and then comes the examination. And also there's a little bit, also we distribute free medication at that time, and all the therapy is also free at that time. So there is that attraction, and people do come in. And we've been doing these camps for over 10 years in Gangaram Hospital. and it's doing very well. So we do camps on various occasions, and the clients do come in there, and then we follow them up in their general OPDs also, which is a free OPD.
Right.
And yes, people are coming out and talking, and I would say that because of this week that we are talking of, were we actually waiting for a celebrity to commit suicide to be able to talk about anxiety and depression? Now we can see so many people talking about anxiety and depression. Why were we not addressing those before? I mean, it's not just a celebrity, but we have so many people who are committing suicide, and suicide is preventable. So what is it that is holding us back from even sensitizing the lay public, talking to children, talking to every person that this is preventable and anxiety can be treated? You just have to talk, and we are there to listen to you. So there's no stigma there, It's like going for any kind of like you said, for an eye camp or for dental. So if there is a physical pain, I would run to the doctor to get that help on the physical pain. But we are not seeing, in our culture, we do not even address the emotional side of the pain. We're not allowed to vent out our emotions. What will people think about us if we talk about it? So when you talk about my wisdom tooth coming out at 60 years of age, people don't say anything. Why would people talk about my emotion, And I need to take care of myself. That's what needs to be done.
Definitely. So you're saying even in your general OPD, there are a number of people who do come and approach mental health professionals, because now perhaps there is more awareness, and the work being done by a hospital to create awareness perhaps also reduces the the hesitation that people may have. Dr. Biswas, you said that in your OPD you will see all patients in a single day. So as a doctor who's consulting, perhaps you can do this. But in many public health, in public hospitals, if I have to get a surgery done, or if I have to get a procedure done, I have to wait my time. I get on a waiting list, because while the doctor's intentions are always good to see that all patients are treated on time, sometimes the infrastructure itself doesn't allow you to do everything in real time, especially when it comes to surgeries or those kind of treatments. So how can this be improved? Is it just a matter of not having the adequate infrastructure, the health infrastructure, the equipment? Could the usage of technology help better streamline the waiting timetables so that people's expectations are managed better? How can that, the waiting time be managed in public sector hospitals?
A nice topic you have raised, because whichever, maybe even in corporate hospital also, it's not that if you go tomorrow, day after tomorrow, you can be operated. So there are two reasons for the delay or postponement from your visit and the date of operation or some procedure, be it cath or operation or anything. One thing is, it needs the minimum preparation for any person, but medical preparation. I'm not telling about mental preparation. If it's suppose you are going today, and if I say that you have an appendicitis, I need to take out your appendix, you will be out of your mind. No, I cannot get operation today. I will go home. Then after 1 or 2 days, I will come back with my relatives. I will talk. So that is a cooling period. That it's around 5, 6, 7 days, and also basic investigations like blood test, blood arrangements. So that obviously, if anything between 1 week to 2 weeks, we should take it as a normal. Because you need to arrange the blood, you need to do the investigation. Suppose I advise for echocardiography, then you would do that, X-ray and other things. But unprecedentedly, we are not unaccustomed to see that 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months delay also are there. And to the large extent, I'm telling you, it's because of the number of service required and the number of service provider. There is a discordance. There is no concordance. The number of service provider and number of people who wants the service. Suppose if I have 4 surgeons in my hospital, and if I have 40% to be operated, and if there are only 8 hours in a day for operation, it cannot be done for all the patients' operation.
Yes.
There are solutions, and here your council and our organization, they can take up to the government that we have to change the paradigm. There should come a paradigm shift in our ideas and concept. We cannot keep our hospital closed by 4 or 5. We have to make out some way so that day and night, the same equipment, same laboratory, same hospital, it is closed for the night. Why it should remain closed for the night when people are there who needs operation? We may
But you
recruit
need personnel then, right? You
we
can't have somebody working day and night.
We have person, we have to recruit in 3 shifts. That's all. We need to, the government still have the proposition that I will have a staff for a single shift duty. They will come morning at 8, 10 or whatever, they will go back at 6. No, let us do 3 shift duty, 3 shifts. So that then it will be rotated. Then at least let our equipment's operation, it should work for 12 to 16 hours and let them give 8 hours for the cooling and maintenance. Out of 24 hours, we can enhance it.
So you're saying our existing infrastructure can be utilized better should the government get more personnel and put them on shifts.
It can be augmented. For the time being, let us augment our existing service by recruiting more people and expanding the hour of work. So morning 8 or 9 and finishing 4 to 5. That we cannot go against labor law. We have to give 8, 9 hours, okay. But let us bring another shift. Let us bring another shift. We don't have, we have, India has a full of people who needs employment. It's not that we are overemployed people are more here. We have a lot of unemployed
but then
people.
we do not have the trained staff, isn't it?
We have.
The number of medical.
We do have. If you go to the in state department like AICT, UGC, there are governing bodies, and if you see the vocational training nowadays, in every state they have augmented the training person to 1,000 times. Okay. And those people have been trained and they are working in a mini center with their big expertise, with mini salaries, and there are many people are there. And then parallelly, more hour of work we start, and people will be trained also. We can take training people also there. We can do the training and service parallelly, the way we are doing in the daytime. Okay. That we can do in the night time, because nurses training, paramedics training, they are being done in the daytime. We can just increase one shift more from 2 to night 10 at least.
Okay.
Then it will be doubled. You can imagine that whatever service we are giving just will be doubled. At the same time, we can enhance the other set of. So this is one of the very, very vital issue that we can. I share one. Around 15 years back, around 18 years back, there was a crisis in the number of medical manpower in the country. And the government of India thought how we can increase the medical manpower. Then they decided that we can start 2 batches of MBBS in the same college, morning and evening. Nowadays, many of the colleges you see, there are evening classes.
Evening shifts,
yes. So very well we can do. It is one of the proposition that you can very well place. 2 shifts will be employed. Maybe there will be 2 superintendents. Maybe there will be 2 principal. That's okay. But we can use the ideal infrastructure. The light, OT table, fan, bed, everything can be used. Turnover can be raised up. If once turnover goes high, we can reduce the waiting time by 50% by this way. So otherwise, next is to enhance the number of hospitals, but that's very cost effective, not so cost effective, because one hospital to build up and to employ one more shift of staff, there is a hell and heaven difference.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely, but I mean, we have to add more hospitals as well, because even with the additional shift, we may not meet the.
We may consider. I'm just telling. We may consider. It's a viable option.
Right.
It's a viable option.
Dr. Kumar, I want to ask you: do you see patients who have traveled from outside the city to come and see you? And does the hospital help in travel or stay arrangements? Because this is one of the reasons why for normal public it looks like that these public health centers and public hospitals are not doing such a great job, because they keep seeing a horde of people who are just lying outside the hospital, and they are camping there because they've come from far and they've nowhere to go. Is this the responsibility of the hospital at all? Because your merit is to give treatment. How the patient survives, where he stays, what arrangements he's made, is it really the patient's responsibility, or should the hospitals also be involved in this? And do you see a lot of patients who travel outside Delhi to come and see you for mental health problems? How do they,
Yeah.
stay stress-free when they're seeing you?
Yeah, so as far as mental health goes, yes, we do see people from outside Delhi NCR and who are coming in from the other parts of the country or sometimes internationally also, or people who are traveling and who are staying here for a period of time. So the hospital has a very good reach out program, and they do take care of the clients who are coming from outside, and they do take care of their staying facilities where they tell them where they can go and stay. They reach out to them. They also give them that facility where if you need a nursing aid or somebody else, that is also taken care of from a point of view of the reach out program that Gangaram Hospital does. So we do take care of those areas also.
All right. So I think we are now joined by Dr. Agarwal as well. Dr. Agarwal had to go in for an emergency surgery and has now found the time very graciously to speak with us, Dr. Sanjay Agarwal. He is a professor and head of department at nephrology, AIIMS, who's joining us now. Dr. Agarwal, thank you so much for sparing the time for the Doctor Gratitude Week. We were speaking with Dr. Biswas and Dr. Roma Kumar about what's the life of a doctor when they work in a public health in a public sector hospital. So, Dr. Agarwal, do relate to us what an everyday normal day for a doctor like you is when you go to see your patient, when you start your morning in the hospital.
So you were talking at the moment or otherwise?
So otherwise, I mean, I want to know as a doctor, when you wake up in the morning, you go to the hospital, what's the experience like?
See, in our setup of a hospital like All India Institute, there is a very much freedom in the sense that if you want to do, there is too much things to do. If you do not want to do anything, there is nobody going to ask you whether you are coming in time or whether you are going in OPD in time or not. So a large number of things depend on the person himself.
Okay.
My usual routine is I usually come by 8:30 and in the morning and go by 6:30 or 7 in the evening. Because most of the time I understand in most of the other doctors in other hospital also, during hospital timing, you can't do any your own work related to research or your study or if you want to write a paper, because most of the time is occupied with some patient or a teaching activity. So if you are doing extra thing related to research or your own things in the form of writing paper or if you are editing something, so you have to do this either once the ward is start at 9:30 or 9 or after the regular ward activity finishes by 5 o'clock or so.
So it looks like a very long day, Dr. Agarwal. How many patients on an average do you see daily?
You see, ours is a super specialty department. So, say I do in our department, we are, many people may not be knowing that All India Institute is significantly short of the faculty. So, if we are 800 faculty sanctioned strength, then we will be having 600 faculty who are appointed. There is at least 20% faculty who those seats are vacant. So same is true in our department. We have got 8 sanctioned seats of faculty, but we are 5 people working, and that is going on for maybe 7 years now.
So, Dr. Agarwal, you're saying that along with seeing the patients, even your teaching requirements take up quite a bit of your time, and since you're short-staffed in your faculty, you have to spend a lot of time there as well.
Number one, I am not able to listen as clearly. Loudness of the sound is a little less.
Okay, Dr. Agarwal, I'll repeat the question. So what I was asking was that along with seeing the patients, you're also teaching at AIIMS. So, so your time is going there as well. But how many patients do you see in a day? And is it a lot of pressure on doctors in public hospitals? Are there too many patients when they go out to the wards and do the surgeries?
So I tell you what I started saying, how many faculty there. I go twice in a week to outpatient and see somewhere 120 patients in 3 hours time, out of which there are new patients are 7 or 8. The rest of them are old patients. But I can tell you the worst portion of life in All India Institute like us is that if I am seeing 100 patients in outpatient, and our specialty is such that 80 to 90% patient will be requiring either lifelong dialysis or kidney transplantation. So the worst part is that every day I have to face a question from the patient that if I don't have a money, it means I don't have a right to life. Because both type of treatments are costly. There is a lack of facilities for dialysis and there is a lack of donor in the society for the transplant. So it is not very easy to listen to the question of patient in this language that if I don't have a money, it means I can't live. So it is very depressing from that way.
So you're
And
saying more than the actual number of patients and the volume of those seeking treatment, it is how you handle their issues of health that is difficult because of the reduced infrastructure and their own paying ability.
you see, if you ask really truly speaking, I am not able to utilize my expertise. Probably I am using my expertise not more than 20% or so. 80% of expertise is not being used because the type of patient we see and the affordability of those patients is such that we cannot give them much benefit while being in this setup.
That's a real shame.
So it is very, it's really very, and other thing is that the number of patients has grown. This hospital was not meant for that anybody can walk to the hospital for showing him. It was always meant for as a referral hospital.
Referral, yes.
But now it has become a general hospital. So number of patients coming, you might be knowing approximately 12,000 patients per day comes to the All India Institute as an outpatient. This is regular, not in the COVID area time. So the issue comes that those patients who demand expertise, your work is diluted by caring the regular patient and you are not able to give that much time to those patients who actually need expertise of All India Institute.
Right. So, Dr. Agarwal, then the question comes that how do you then streamline the inflow of patients? Would you then use technology? Would that be the first filter for anyone seeking treatment, so that that if you do not need specialized treatment, that patient can be referred to another place where he may get that treatment. Does technology come to the rescue here? How can we have a more streamlined fashion so that we can utilize the available facilities and the expertise of the doctors? You yourself are saying that I'm seeing all kinds of patients, and my specialization is in nephrology, and there is a mismatch for what you're specializing in and what is the kind of patients you see. How will we manage to streamline this?
You see that the concept of starting AIIMS-like institution in the country was based on this, that people from different part of country will remain in their own area and will not come to All India Institute in Delhi. Not only AIIMS-like institution, many other institutions were grown. Say like some of the example I can give, Indira Gandhi Institute of Medical Sciences, Patna was made say 25 years back. They aim that say All India Institute cater approximately 40% patient of total who comes to All India Institute are from Bihar.
Okay.
And Patna Institute, Indira Gandhi Institute of Patna was made 25 years back. Initially, the doctors from All India Institute supported for development. But if you ask today what happened, that institute, either people don't have trust, or I cannot tell what is the reason, but still very few people go to the institute. And for minor complaint, they are being referred by the institute itself to go to All India Institute Delhi. So what I am trying to say that in spite of so many aims like institution being developed, still the number of patients coming to Delhi hasn't decreased. While this was never a aim. Aim was that in every area, once the government is planning in every state one institute like All India Institute, we expect that the number coming to the All India Institute should be restricted, and those patients who really need expertise, only those should come. But that hasn't developed. Say the initial 6 All India Institute aims like institution started 2012 and we are running in 2020. So it is 9 years has gone. But all those 6 aims which started in 2012 hasn't reached to the stage that even every facility, every department is there in the institute, what to say of expertise. So none of those 6 institutes, at least in my field, none of those institutes are doing kidney transplantation.
Okay.
So the point is that the government has to understand that the disparity of salary of the public hospital and teaching institution versus the private setup is so huge that very few people are interested in joining academic institution and carrying academics. So those institutions which are there, hardly people, I mean, out of 6 institutes, only 2 institutes has got nephrologists. 4 institutes still hasn't got a nephrologist in spite of 8 years has gone.
So Dr. Biswas, would you like to add here and give us your perspective on this? When public health or public hospitals are being built in other parts of the country so that the pressures of AIIMS in Delhi, why aren't these coming up? You know, if I am a local of Patna, I much rather live and work in the same city. And you know, if there is a hospital, a good hospital, a big hospital where I can go to, then why is it that they're not coming up to part with the bigger hospital in Delhi? Why should all healthcare be centered in one place? Why can't it be a hub and spoke model where there are many hubs of healthcare?
Yeah, Anisha, keeping full respect and honor to Sanjay sir, I just want to say that I also had spent 3 years in AIIMS as a senior resident, and later on I came out for my career in different way. But what Sarah has highlighted, exactly there is not concordance in the salary and the amount of job. You see the country, what was there after independence, and the country what is today, there has been a paradigm shift in the aspect, concept, and attitude of the people. And the availability and the possibility of career in different segments have come up. So AIIMS is not the only segment where career can be grown up. But as Sarah told, that government has to think differently to retain the faculty. I just told in my previous talk that either we have to share cash or kind. So cash I didn't mention, but I just mentioned kind, that make 3 shifts. 1 shift, 1 shift, 1 shift. So if you cannot give, India has an Equal Remuneration Act. So what an officer in one ministry gets, another ministry, same officer cannot get more salary. There are more or less equal salary. So if you cannot do that, your change, but lawmakers can do it. In the parliament, they can do it. Because ultimately, what Sarah has told is correct. In 2012, we built 6 AIIMS. Each AIIMS cost 1,500,000 crore. I mean 1,500 crore, supposedly like that. So what has yielded? These have yielded absolutely nothing probably, because no DM, no MCAs in a few, even not all AIIMS has postgraduate till now. Only they are linking with undergraduates. So only already 10 years, 1 decade is over. So we have to think in a paradigm shift in a different way. If required, the lawmakers should sit in the parliament and they should change it, because otherwise we are draining money, we are wasting money in the drain. Building one aims with 1,000 or 2,000 crore and it is not giving that adequate yielding for next 10 years, then what is the outcome of proposing such aims? So if that money has been, if we can make salary or something high, more faculty can be retained. Or if we cannot do, then at least 3-4 shifts can be done. So at least we can, some people like time in their life, so they will join, they will develop the stream. But you will be there for 12 hours at a stage in a day with the same remuneration and also will get the large number of patients. That cannot go together. These have been established by new 6Ms. Now it is proven that it doesn't work. So I have a full respect to sir what he has, Dr. Agarwal has highlighted. It's absolutely correct. But thing is that who will build the cat? That's the thing.
Yeah, I can give you another example. I'm in institute since 85.
Ah, sir.
And I did nephrology here and then got faculty. So if I give example of say 1990, for one faculty post of nephrologist in All India Institute, the number of application used to be 15 to 20. Now if you talk of last year 2019, for 2 posts of nephrologist of All India Institute, there were 4 application only, and only 2 candidates actually appeared in the interview. Now somebody should ask why. Of the all public hospital, I'm not comparing, every hospital is good, every hospital has got good doctors. But it is a general concept that even salary-wise, institute has got maximum salary in all public hospital. But in spite of that, people say for 2 posts only 2 applicants are coming. Somebody should seriously think that if this trend remains, then after 20 years, you may not have enough nephrologists to care for the public if academic institutions are not nurtured and academics is not given importance. So this is a very wide thinking government has to do, that it's not only patient care, academic institution has got a major mandate of creating the new breed of specialists.
Yes.
So after 15 years, if teaching institutions are not having faculty, who will train the new specialists?
So what is the biggest impediment, Dr. Agarwal, to your mind, to get more people into training? Is it just the salaries? Because, if I practice, I can get my own clinic, I have a better earning. Is it just that, or is there anything else why people are not driven towards teaching or increasing capacities in the academic sector?
One of the things I can say that the society has changed in last 40 years. The type of people who were there before, say I can compare when I was resident in 82, 83, my way of thinking, or I can say that probably majority of people thinking was different. Now today's resident, we handle 13 residents in our department. Their concept of, you can say, life or society has totally changed. You can say, if I can give you example of, I'm forgetting the movie name of Amitabh Bachchan's movie, Baghban. Many of you must have seen the later portion of when Amitabh Bachchan was making his statement. And the statement was that you can apply today's residents have become much more wiser and more practical. So they already plan that what they have to do after residency is finished. So if they have already planned that they will go to private setup or they have got their own nursing home, so they will only concentrate during residency those things which actually pay them at a later stage. Second thing is that why people are not joining. There was a time when the academic institutions were having enough money to care for the poor patient also with the advanced medicine or advanced machines. But if you see, probably private setup will get newer machine much earlier than the All India Institute.
Okay.
Because those machines generate money for them. So what is implication is that the newer medicine which comes in transplant or otherwise in nephrology in my specialty, we are not able to use those machines, those drugs or those therapies in poor patient because of the cost involved. While the type of patient goes in a private setup, they are able to use the newer medicine and newer technique much earlier than the government setup.
Mm-hmm.
So even in an academic fora in the society, when we discuss, say if I give example, Medanta might be presenting a drug which they have used in 200 patients while we have used in 10 patients only, just because the type of patient we see cannot afford. So even academic institutions are nowadays becoming little lacking behind for the medicine or procedure which are costly. And you understand the current newer medicine and monoclonal antibodies and more precise medicine and the research and the cost goes are becoming costly and costly, which we are not able to use in sizable number of a patient. So it is not only salary, but the job. That's what I told you, that I am using my 20% expertise. 80% expertise I am not able to use because the type of patient we see, they are not able to afford. It is not only salary, but the job satisfaction and the type of advanced procedure or medicine use is also becoming less in private, in public sector hospital as compared to government sector hospital.
But Dr. Biswas, is this set to change because of the Ayushman Bharat model that the government has come out with, where there is insurance, more insurance for people who are really poor. Will that mean then that all hospitals also upgrade to latest technologies and offer these if they're coming with an insured under an insured plan?
Yeah, Ayushman Bharat is one step that might change a little bit, but change in the government sector's problem may not change much, but people might get benefit a bit better. I'm telling that because the Ayushman Bharat also has linked not only private hospital but also government hospitals. So the same Ayushman Bharat insurance program, anyone can go to private hospitals also. But there is a possibility that government hospital might get some more fund to buy, as Dr. Agarwal told, that hospitals not being able to procure medicine and other things. They might get little bit more, but Ayushman Bharat also ceiling effect. It has a yearly ceiling. It has a structured treatment program. It is not unlimited, because if you stay for this ICU for this many days, only this much amount of money you will get. For this surgery, this much money is allocated. But still, there is a possibility that some more money can be used by the government sector hospitals to procure new medicine and new devices. But this doesn't translate to the salary of the doctor, because this cost expenditure will go to the hospital infrastructure and equipment. But there is no linking of Ayushman Bharat's money to in-house doctor salary. So there is no translation of this to that. So that way it will be very difficult to retain physicians in the government hospitals. As I told that if this continues, then one day we will not have ample setup and centers to produce our next generation physician in this country, and there will be total bankruptcy of super specialized doctor in the country. That will be a very difficult situation. At present, it is there even in any state. If you go, if you advertise for any job for a super specialty or specialty, there will be 60 to 70% less applicant than required. So we have to think. Government have to think. Oh, sorry, sir.
No, I will bring a issue. You see, these things are so complex, and the general public doesn't actually get into deep into it. Now, what is the major lacunae of Ayushman Bharat? Now, if you see, if you divide society into 100 people, then only 10 people are below poverty line and 10% people are who can afford everything. Now, 80% people are not in below poverty line, and Ayushman Bharat is for below poverty line. So 80% of the population which cannot afford doesn't fall into category that they are benefited by Ayushman Bharat. Yes, so you can imagine it is there for 10% people, but 80% cannot afford and doesn't get benefit out of Ayushman Bharat. Plus, Ayushman Bharat has also categorized everything, is every disease or every treatment is not included in Ayushman Bharat. Say, for example, transplant is not in Ayushman Bharat, even though if you are below poverty line, because the disease is not included in Ayushman Bharat, so you will not get benefit.
Okay.
So you can imagine Ayushman Bharat has got a very big issue of that 80% which is neither able to afford nor fall into category to get a benefit out of it.
All right. So the intention seems to be good behind the Ayushman Bharat program, but as you have pointed out, as Dr. Biswas has pointed out, really there needs to be investments into the faculty, into the doctors who are performing at these public hospitals outside Delhi. In the salaries that they are given, there are ideas of increasing capacity by adding more shifts, so that in that given time, the doctors aren't stressed, but they get their good salaries for those 8 hours that they spend in the hospital. But the same facilities can be used more optimally in another shift again. So thank you so much, Dr. Biswas, Dr. Agarwal, Dr. Kumar. Okay.
I'll just add one more thing before we are concluding. See, as we are thinking to bring change, you see, in our country, not all people pay their tax. It is very true. Yes. Hardly some percentage have their PAN card, but we all want that government healthcare system. It is very true. Everyone, whoever is living in this country, they want that I should be supported with the government healthcare system. But some reason or other reason, either many of them do not have PAN, even someone has PAN, they are not taxpayer. Even though they are paying tax, they are giving. But we can do a block level, some sort of mini insurance scheme. Each and every family will contribute 100 rupees or 200 rupees in a month. Minimum. I'm telling, from my experience, I'm telling, our employees are giving only 150 to 250 rupees per month. And with gathering that minuscule amount of money, we are surplus with 70,000 crore rupees right now. The parliament few days back, one of the MP raised question why the ESIC money is not being distributed to the country of the people at this moment. Because we are having surplus money of 70,000 crore, giving this kind of full treatment to all our family, be it transplant or anything. So this is the power of government funded money. So I request that every block under the leadership of BDO or sub-divisional officer, let every family contribute 100 rupees in a month. It is not a big issue. Let every family have a card, PAN card, let every family contribute 100 rupees, and block level we develop small hospitals and they will be treated with their money there. That is one of the way all of them will contribute and they will feel that it is my money, so I should use the healthcare judiciously. It is possible. From this insurance scheme, state term insurance scheme, we have seen that if you gather money small amount, you can give the treatment to the whole. So that AIIMS and other hospital, that 80% people, those neither below poverty nor cannot afford, where they will go. Please show them a way that you contribute 50 or 100 rupees in a month. Large amount will generate and we will support. The much of the government etc. will come down.
Right. For that, Dr. Biswas, we need to have that awareness amongst people that this is not an expenditure. This is an investment into your own health. Thank you so much, Dr. Biswas, Dr. Agarwal, Dr. Kumar.
Only one sentence I want to say. Everybody should understand that health has never been a priority for the government for years and years. And that probably explains everything.
Yes, that is true. And we are just hoping and praying that after this shock of an epidemic, suddenly, for everyone, healthcare will be center of everything. And they will bring it upon the government to now think about this. You cannot keep glossing over the lack of healthcare in our country. It affects everyone. It affects people's lives, and it affects the economy. It affects everything. Health is a basic that we all need. And if all of you have raised your voice, you've spoken about your experiences, sooner than later, the government also has to wake up to the reality and make those changes. Thank you so much, Dr. Biswas,
Thank you
Dr.
very
Nima
much.
Kumar,
Thank you.
Dr. Agarwal, for speaking with us and sharing with us your experiences of working in public health hospitals, where doctors are doing an exemplary job to treat the number of patients coming in there, as well as teaching in these hospitals which have medical colleges attached with them. Thank you so much for sharing with us your experiences of how public hospitals are run.
Thank
Now,
you.
we are very lucky to have with us Rohit Datta. Rohit Datta is an inspiring patient because he was one of the first persons to be infected by COVID-19. Now we have a huge tally of those people who were affected by coronavirus. Rohit has beat coronavirus and he is with us to talk about his experience. Rohit, thank you so much for being with us. Um, being even now, 3 months later, people are scared of corona because they feel that it's too new, treatments are not foolproof, it is too dangerous. What would you tell people after you have gone through the experience?
First and foremost, good evening to everybody. My experience, I cannot actually tell you in words. You see, today after reading hydrochloroquine, remdesivir, plasma, so many things. At my time, it was just a mystery. COVID was a mystery. So whatever I had to fight was with the help of my doctors. Whatever my doctors told me, I just did that. Nobody was very sure what needs to be done. But however, my health was improving only with the positivity which the doctors was passing to me. You see, I was just kept on antibiotics and some anti-flu tablets, and I am here in front of you with the help of those small medicines only. I don't know how big a medicines anti-flu is, but Tamiflu is no medicine to be given in corona. So it is just the positive attitude which kept me running, and it is only due to doctors and the entire medical fraternity who helped me during those times.
Right, Rohit. I have read experiences of many corona patients, and but some people have blamed the media for increasing the fear and sensationalizing the disease, saying that it's only a cold. It's like a cold, it's like a virus, it's like a cold that happens. But there are some people who've gone through it who say that no, it's not a cold. You feel physically completely drained. It's different from a cold. Was it the case with you, or did you have a experience which was easier?
See, initially, I was, as you know, I was the first in the north of India to get the COVID. See, at that time, media wanted to tell people. Nobody was aware what the symptoms are. Everything they had just heard from others. So what mischief they had done on me also, because of which a lot of rumors and lot of schools and societies fought with each other. Lot of hotels were closed. That Rohit was everywhere. So that is what media was trying to do. Right or wrong, I don't know, because you see all type of media is there. The bestest of newspaper we read was giving wrong information about me till the day I was discharged. They wrote in newspaper, the best newspaper of India, they wrote that I had gone to Agra and I infected people there. So that is not journalism. What I had see, all of us read newspapers for truth, but that is not journalism. That you cannot write without knowing the exact cause. But honestly, certain difficulties like lack of smell or excessive smell, nobody knew. Even I did not share it with my doctor when I used to put my head in this position, I used to smell that there is some cigarette in my head. So I thought maybe in Italy I was there, people were smoking a lot. I although have never smoked in my life, I thought that maybe that cigarette from that taxi driver which I had taken is still in my head. But after coming out and I did a webinar somewhere, I told them that I was feeling like this. So they said that, sir, it is a symptom. But
Okay.
up to 15th of March, people did not know that lack of smell and excessive smell also is a symptom.
So basically, we are learning more as we go. It's a new pandemic. It's a new disease. Everybody is dealing with it as they go. Uh, at your time, perhaps it was, ignorance, or perhaps you didn't know that you were in an exposed condition, or, perhaps there were things that you could have helped, but you didn't because the awareness didn't exist. But now, there's so much campaign about staying safe, washing your hands, wearing a mask, and people are doing that. And yet they find that they have contracted the disease. So now this whole blame game starts. You did this, you were careless, how could I do this? How can you affect the family? All this, the emotional aspect of it. How do we deal with this? I mean, is it fair to blame? I mean, we are all making as much change in our lifestyle, we're bringing in as many precautions as we can. And yet, I've seen a few families where they cannot explain how they got the disease, but there are a few members who got it. So, I mean, what do you do here?
See, emotionally, you have to fight it out. Like I can only tell you a few examples of people I know that emotionally you have to fight it out. And anyhow, if it feels like a crime if you infect somebody else, God willing, I did not pass it on to anybody. But when the reports came, the people I had met in 4-5 days, there were around like my 2 kids and my mother, my wife, who had met many people in those times. But emotionally, seriously, it will surely, if you don't have positive attitude, it will drag you negatively only. So, but nobody goes to a supermarket to buy corona or to get corona. You just get it. You have to understand that. You have to just understand the fact that you can take only your precautions. I know of people who have not even moved out of from their home, but one newspaper seller or one sabji seller, he comes and he spoils everything. So it is not their fault. It is just, I feel it is just what God wants. That is just my thinking. You have to be very cautious. You have to wear a mask once you go out. But it is not sure that whatever you are doing is you're going to be saved. I don't feel that.
So should you take those precautions or not? I mean, not
No,
taking them would be very foolhardy.
Understand, ma'am, I take those precautions even though people tell me that, Rohit, now it cannot happen to you. But I am not very sure about Chinese media and Chinese reports. Data when comes from Europe, India, or US, I understand that better. But ma'am, there are people who think they are invincible. Like I've started going out now. It's been 3-4 months now. But one of my friend, he does not like wearing a mask. He says, मुझसे सांस नहीं ली जाती mask पहन के. क्या करो आप बताओ? वो कहता भैया मुझे आपसे हो नहीं सकता. But I am scared. I tell him to wear a mask. He doesn't wear. What needs to be done? People need to be aware. I tell him, तेरे को लगता है you are invincible, but you are not. मैं भी मिनरल वाटर पीता हूँ इटली जाके, मगर मुझे भी तो हो गया.
So, Rohit, what would you like to say? You mentioned that you really bounced back from this because of the doctors. At that point in time, the doctors were also handling something new. They were also trying many things. Would you like to say something about the way the doctors treated you and how that helped you to recover? Do you think learning the ropes, they did something that helped you? How did they reassure you that increased your resolve to beat this disease?
There are few instances actually in everybody's life which drives you along. For example, when it was broken to me that Rohit, you are corona positive, there were 3 doctors who came to me. I could not see their faces, but they told me, Rohit, बैठो. जैसे ही they told me बैठो, I understood I am positive. So it is like what we see in movies also कि आपको कैंसर है तो जरा आप बैठो. So it was something like that. The very first thing they told me, all three of them, they were trying to tell me, Rohit, don't worry, it is a normal flu. You will be fine, and we are sure that you will be going back home in 28 days. Please understand, 28 days was the first time the doctors told me that you will have to stay in isolation, which is now 5 days. It was brought down to 14 days, but initially it was 28 days. Ma'am, now the second instance, see, doctor reassuring you, and trust me, when you are in bad time, doctor is a god. I felt, see, our ancestors used to say, भगवान हो डॉक्टर साहब आप, वो actually hospital में भगवान ही लगते हैं. दूसरा, ma'am, I made a list because I had to stay for 28 days in Safdarjung Hospital. So I could not stay in one room without a laptop or a television. I made a small list of things needed for next 28 days, including clothes, a blanket, a pillow, which I generally take. Ma'am, the doctor was such kind enough. He just told me one thing. I would like to specify his name also. I have never mentioned his name. It is Dr. Nitesh Gupta. He told me, Rohit, शराब और सिगरेट के अलावा कुछ भी मंगा लो. So I told him, डॉक्टर साहब एक टीवी मंगाना है. वो कहते टीवी तो मंगा लो मगर केबल नहीं है. So those were the things. If he would have acted negatively and told me नहीं ये नहीं आ पाएगा वो नहीं आ पाएगा तो शायद मैं भागने के लिए अप्रोच लगाता कि सर मुझे कुछ भगाने का यहाँ से अप्रोच करो. Number 3 point, ma'am, just understand what our country does in time of war or pandemic like wars. I told him, Doctor Saab, somebody has sent me a message that drink vitamin C, and I understand that orange juice has a lot of vitamin C. So can I tell my family to send vitamin C? Tell my friends. Family could not come out; they were quarantined. So can I tell my friend, ma'am? He brought 500 milliliter pack of juice, orange juice, from his own pocket, and I told him, sir, I cannot pay you now. He said, Rohit, आज के बाद ये पूछना भी मत. Please understand, a doctor of Safdarjung Hospital bringing 500 milliliter packs of juice, unbelievable. People are saying all sort of things, but this has happened to me. Number 4 thing, ma'am, again, he told me, Rohit, 24 hours of that day, please don't look at your watch. If you are at a problem, just call me. And ma'am, at one night I had received some breath issues, so I called him, not called him, at 12:01 I called him in the night. 12:02 he sent a SMS back to me that I am sending team of doctors. Please understand what people are doing for us. And ma'am, cribbing, we even crib at home कि नमक कम है, मिर्च कम है, ये सब तो चलता रहता है. So we have to understand what our medical staff, ma'am, leave the medical staff. I am talking about a person जो झाड़ू पोछा मारने आता था रूम में twice. I could not see his face. I told him, and there was a lot of guilt inside me कि why Rohit, you are troubling everybody. So I told them sorry कि आपको मेरी वजह से तकलीफ हो रही है. वो कहता है सर इसमें सॉरी होने की कोई बात नहीं है. इट इज माय प्रोफेशन, मैंने खुद चूज किया है. You don't be sorry. I just pray to God that you are relieved out from here ASAP. So ma'am, that is what the focus is, that what doctors and people around you, positive people make you positive, ma'am. आप कोई भी सिनेरियो क्रॉस कर जाओगे, नेगेटिव सिनेरियो, अगर आपके आसपास पॉजिटिव पीपल हैं तो. मेरी थिंकिंग ये है मैम. अगर मुझे वो डॉक्टर ने ये नहीं बोला होता कि आप कुछ भी मंगा लो शराब और सिगरेट की जगह, तो शायद मेरे को वो 28 days 28 months लगते.
That is true. And thank you so much, Rohit, for sharing with us your experience, because we have a panel of doctors and we cannot thank them enough for the work they do. But when they listen
only
to
one
a
thing.
patient.
Sorry, intervening. Only one thing. मैम, दवा अपना काम करती है, मगर डॉक्टर जब एक बार सर पे ऐसे हाथ फेर देते हैं ना, इट इज लाइक अ मदर्स का हाथ. प्लीज समझो, दैट इज मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट मैम.
And that is the reason why we're having this gratitude week, because we want to thank the doctors for doing the exemplary work that they're doing, and you're a living testament of this, of the care that you've received. And thank you so much for sharing with us your experience. And we really want to thank the doctors who are doing this tireless work for all patients around the world. Even without a pandemic, they have never stepped back from what is their duty, and have always stepped forward and claimed whatever they could, whatever they can with the facilities that they have. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the doctors on the panel here. Thank you, Rohit, for coming and sharing with us your experience. The Doctor Gratitude Week is for this reason, that we want to say thanks to all the doctors who are doing this relentless, tireless work for their patients. We want to thank them for all the effort that they make.